It is so wonderful to see you, Joseph, Abigail, and Jesse. Good to see you guys. So, how have you been? Christmas is done. Everything is done. We are looking forward to the next year, huh? 2021.
Yeah.
Many of you are looking forward to vaccinations. I know I am. I really am. I hope I get it soon because I'm a diabetic. Anyway, so the artist that we are going to discuss today is Peter Paul Rubens. Okay, let me share my screen for now. Hold on, share screen. This one, share. Can you see my screen? Yes. So we're going to discuss Peter Paul and Rubens, and he is from the Baroque period. So you remember in the very first ArtStart lecture, I kind of went through the different timings in Western art and architecture, right? We had, you know, we started off with like ancient primitive art, like not primitive art, but um, ancient art, and then medieval art, and then we talked something about Renaissance art. Do you remember that? Hi, Sunita. How are you?
Hi, Hyacinth. I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you and good to see everyone.
Yeah.
The Ampong family.
Yes.
How nice.
So we were talking about these various time periods in art history, right? The Western art history. So it was first, so the Renaissance period, we talked about a couple of artists. One was, can you remember anyone? Abigail, maybe, in the Renaissance period? So let me refresh your memory. How about Leonardo da Vinci? You remember him? Yeah. So Leonardo da Vinci was like a scientist. He was an architect. He was, he was a lot of things. And he painted, one of his most famous paintings was what? Mona Lisa, right? And he did a lot of other things. Like Vitruvian Man was one of Vinci's famous paintings that we still see in all the science magazines and such, right? So that was the Renaissance period. Now, what we're talking about right now is the Baroque period. So Peter Paul Rubens falls in the Baroque period. So after the Renaissance period, we have a period called Mannerism, okay? And then there comes this period called the Baroque period. So the difference between, so we're not going to talk anything about mannerisms right now, but we will talk about the difference between Renaissance and Baroque. So Baroque period, in which one of the artists is Rubens, is characterized by, they took a lot from the Renaissance period, meaning in the Renaissance period, like one of the other artists was what? Michelangelo, who did the Sistine Chapel. So all of his paintings, now Michelangelo was a sculptor, right? But then he also painted, and one of the famous paintings was the Sistine Chapel ceiling. You remember that? So if you look at those paintings, what one of the differences between that and this era, which is the Baroque period, is that uh, you know in the Renaissance period, just think about it. These people, Vinci and Michelangelo, they were interested in studying the human form as is, and then they idealized it. So everybody was tall, everybody had good musculature, everybody had they were very realistic. Whereas in the Baroque period, it is they made the figures more realistic. That was the difference between the Renaissance and the Baroque period. One of the differences. There are many differences. And then one of the other major differences from the Renaissance to the Baroque period is that in the Renaissance period, if you look at the paintings, you can go back and look at the lectures that the PowerPoint that I gave you of Michelangelo and the Leonardo da Vinci. You will find that, especially in Michelangelo's paintings, The light is all over light. Whereas in the paintings that we are going to consider today of Rubens, and in the Baroque period in particular, there is a huge play of light. Like there is only one light source. So light is coming from one side and lighting up the main subject, and then it goes into darkness. So just think about that. I just wanted to refresh your memory on that so that you will understand that, one of the differences, one subtle difference. So the reason why I bring up the periods in art history, especially Western art history, is that as you go through in monthly progression, you're going to learn just a little bit more than what you learned before. And then cumulatively, you're going to understand a lot more, as you progress. Like, for instance, Joseph is in eighth grade and Abigail is in 10th grade, but then she will move on to, college in 2 years. So in the 2 years, we are going to discuss different artists monthly. And then by the end of 2 years, you're going to be a little bit more educated about the art and the different, whereas Joseph will be much more because he has 4 more years to go. If you hang in there with me, I hope you will. Okay. So let's move on. Let's look at Rubens. So Rubens was a Flemish painter, and he also designed tapestry and print, uh, different prints. Okay. He was born on the 28th of June in 1577 in Siegen, Germany, and he spent time in Antwerp, Italy, and Spain. He died in Antwerp, which is present day Belgium, at the age of 62. He had a heart attack, basically. Okay. He's a Baroque painter, and most of the Baroque paintings show dynamism, then vitality, and sensual exuberance. Like, so there's a lot of dynamism means what? There's a lot of animal animosity, so not animosity really, but dynamism. Like there's a lot of movement in his paintings. Okay. And most of Rubens is not R, it should be Rubens. Okay. So when I'll correct it and send it over to you guys. But most of the Baroque paintings, the word Baroque was actually poo-pooed by a lot of historians at that time. So they used to call it, oh, Baroque. Baroque is like it actually, the term Baroque comes from a Portuguese term by the name of uh, Barroco. Barroco means it's a flawed pearl. Okay. So they used to make fun of these paintings, but then eventually this particular style of paintings just stuck. And so this period from the late 14th century to the early 17th century is called the Baroque period. Okay. And like everything in, as you will go through all these different historical stages of paintings, you find that, people are being, made fun of. Like Monet was made fun of. Remember? Monet's impressionistic landscape was made fun of. Picasso was made fun of. A lot of people were made fun of. But then eventually, like here in this case, the Baroque painters were made fun of, and they would call it like a misaligned pearl or something. You know how pearls are really round and beautiful. And Barroco was a Portuguese term for a pearl that is all twisted and not perfect. So they said, oh, this particular group of painters are Barroco. But then the term stuck, and so now we have Baroque. This period is called the Baroque period, and it was actually a very nice period to, you know, it shows exaggerated lighting, intense emotions. That's where the dynamism comes from. So where did he go, and what kind of education did he get? He went to Antwerp. Actually, they fled uh, because of persecution of Protestants, and they came to Antwerp. And he received an education. It's called a humanist education. He was not educated as an artist at first. And then at 14, he apprenticed with Verheight, okay, Tobias Verheight. And they recognized that he had a gift of drawing and painting. And then he spent 4 years. He spent about a year or 6 months with Verheight, and then he spent 4 years with Adam van Noot. Okay, and he was influenced by Van Veen, Otto van Veen. Titian was very influenced by Titian. He's another painter. Tintoretto, another painter. Carracci, Caravaggio, and Veronese. These were painters that influenced his style of painting. And this man was quite an educated guy in the sense he also spoke 7 different languages. So what is one of the things that you constantly keep getting from all these painters that you're studying? That all of them showed promise from a very young age, right? From a very young age, they showed some type of promise. So whatever it is, like your family has a lot of people from of different age groups, and you will find that each of you are different in that you will have an interest in a certain subject or a certain uh, area of study. So by all means, pursue that area of study and do as well as you can. So let's look at some of his famous paintings. Okay, one is the Elevation of the Cross right here. So remember, I told you the Baroque period people were, you know, they 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 had very ornate pictures. They had very realistic pictures. They painted realistically, not idealized but realistic. Okay, so and then there is one source of light. So in this particular panel, it's a very huge panel. It's about 182 by 134 inches in length, and it is a triptych. You know what the word triptych means 3 panels in one triptych. See, triptych. So there are 3 wood panels, and it was done for a church. That the original church, of course, was destroyed, and then it was then placed. Nowadays, it is placed in the Cathedral of Our Lady in Antwerp. Okay, so 182 by 134 inches. So 182 by 134. This weighs 134 and this weighs 182. So if you look at it, 60 inches is about 5 feet. So 134 is more than 10 feet tall, right? So it's more than 10 feet tall, and 182 divided by 60, about 10 times. So 60, so 5 plus 10, about 15 feet wide. So it's huge. And imagine painting, I mean, I have difficulty painting a small thing. Imagine painting something as huge and make it so realistic and so awesome. So what do you think is one of the nice things that you see here? How do you interpret the art? Abigail, you want to go ahead, take a stab at it?
There's a lot of movement in it.
Yes, there's a lot of movement. Yes, that's a good observation. Mhm. And this is what's happening here is it's a biblical story, right? They're elevating Jesus onto the cross. Like so all these people are trying to push Jesus up, to crucify him. And it's just a very so he's already been, so if you look at it, the cross, he's been nailed to the cross already. You can see that. And these big hurly burly people are uh, trying to push the cross up so that it can be mounted, pushed into the ground. And here there are people who are just completely anguished and sad and horrified at this spectacle, right? So that's a beautiful, and the effect of light is showcased over here. So the effect, so see how there's a lot of darkness in this one area, a lot of darkness, but then the light source is lighting up the main thing, the main Jesus here, the faces and expressions and anguish of all these people. But then the darkness kind of fades in, but the light just, they are showcasing um, the main subjects in light. That's one thing that you take off with this painting. The second painting that's very famous of his is the Descent from the Cross. So here's Jesus. He's died. They are trying to move his body away from the cross, and there are, I think, 8 or 9 people. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people that are assisting the removal of the body from the cross, and there's a ladder and so forth, and they're trying to. So that's the descent from the cross. This again is a triptych, right? 3 panels, wood, oil on panel or wood, and it boasts of one source of light. Okay. So what happened is there was a war in 1794, and Napoleon sent this painting to the Louvre in Paris. And then in 1815, after the war was over, the painting was brought back to Antwerp. Okay. Here is another painting. This is the fall of man. You remember the story of Adam and Eve? Have you heard about the story of Adam and Eve? So Rubens, one of the things that Rubens was very well known for is his paintings on mythological and religious subjects. He did do landscapes and such, but his paintings used up a lot of mythological and religious subjects. So here Adam and Eve are shown, and here what it is a sort of this is a copy of, I remember I told you he was influenced by this gentleman by the name of Titian. Titian. So Titian did a painting similar to this, but this painting is a little different in that there's a parrot here in the background, and Eve is trying to pluck the apple from the tree, and he's asking Adam to eat that apple, and that's just called the first sin of man, and that's why this painting is called the fall of man. So this is what happened, and that's why apparently man were banished to the earth. Okay. Now the next painting is the Massacre of Innocents. This is again another story. You remember when Christ was born, they said that Christ will be born and he's going to reign all over the world. And Herod, who was the ruler at the time, he said, oh my God, I don't want somebody to come and rule, and take my power and position. So what did he order? He ordered the massacre of all babies born during that time. So this is the Massacre of Innocents painting that he's done. So Herod sent all these people, and look, they've raised this baby up, and they're killing all these babies. But you remember, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph fled at that time, and so Jesus was then saved. But then all these kids were killed on the 28th of December, which is called the Holy Innocents Day. So this is just a very gruesome scene that he has painted, So again, so he's shed the light on the baby, some of the people here, and so forth. It would be nice for you to sort of, expand the painting and take a look at it more, so you can see the expressions of the people and so forth. So this particular painting is 55 by 77 inches. And it is an oil on panel. And guess how much it sold for? You want to take a guess?
Million?
Huh?
4 million?
4 million. Okay. How about 112 million? It sold for 112 million to a private guy in Ontario, but then he donated it to the Art Gallery of Ontario, and that's where it is. Okay. 112 million. Isn't that unbelievable? Unbelievable. There's another painting of his. It's called Saturn. Ooh. And Saturn, look at it. Like Saturn was like, this is again based on mythology. And what is happening here? Saturn is this man over here, and he's eating little babies, like his own sons. He was eating up his own sons because he knew that these sons are going to take away his power. This is a mythological story, And you remember the star back there? These are 3 stars, right? Basically, Saturn has rings, remember? So during those times, they couldn't figure out that Saturn had all these rings. So he he is showcasing that star as though these are the rings. These two other stars are rings. So you see the anguish that he's showcasing of the baby, complete gruesome, grotesque picture of this man eating his own son. This is mythology. Okay. And then we can move on to the next painting. This is Samson and Delilah, yet another story. So, of love and deception and so forth. And here's Samson sleeping on Delilah's lap, and he's ordering the servants to cut off his locks because Samson thought his uncut locks were his source of strength, right? But Delilah sort of, gets her servants to cut off his hair, which is his source of strength. So here they are showcasing that. Again, what do you see? There's a source of light, and the light is showcasing on the main subjects. And then here's another piece of light, and then they're showcasing those. So what do you see here? There's a difference in light and dark spaces. So the dark spaces are so dark, and you'll see this even in Rembrandt. I think we discussed this. Did we discuss Rembrandt? I don't remember, but you will find that because of the darkness in the areas, the lightness of the paintings really accentuates the painting. This is one of a very nice characteristic uh, of uh, of the Baroque period. And it is again a 73 by 81 inch oil on wood. And in Christie's in 1980, it was purchased for about 5 million. Okay, let's move on to the next painting. This is Prometheus Bound. It is 96 by 82.6 inches. It's a rather large painting. It's there in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So what do you see in this picture? It's again a mythological story. So this type of, so what the way he has pictured this painting is this Prometheus, he is showcased from as though he's like this type of showcasing of a human figure is called foreshortening. So like, for instance, if you were going to paint me and I do this, and you paint my hands first and then my face, it's called foreshortening. So it'll appear that my hands are bigger than my face. So that's the perspective you're looking at. So that's called, this kind of painting is called foreshortening. And what's happening here? The eagle is like devouring this Prometheus. Prometheus is writhing in pain, and he's actually chained to, I don't know the entire story of that goes behind this, but that's what is being showcased. Apparently, the eagle was painted by another artist, not Rubens. Okay, here's another painting. This is a very famous painting. It's called The Disembarkation at Versailles. It's present in the Louvre. And again, it's a very big painting. It's 155 inches by 116 inches. It recounts the then Queen of France, Marie de Medici's advent into Versailles on 3rd of November 1600. So it's a historical event that he's painting. And this Marie de Medici had ordered about 24 paintings. This is one of the paintings of that time. So remember, those days, unlike today, people were very proud of painters. Painters had a respectable, what do you call it, place in society, and people respected art, and the public actually, would sometimes take a whole day off when certain pieces of art were installed. You don't see that now. So artists are now talking about, okay, when they don't get paid as much and they don't want to go into it because um, it doesn't pay as well and so forth. But that was not the case in those days, in the 1600s and stuff. So uh, Rubens was a pretty rich man. Okay. So in this painting, so this is a real fixture, which is Marie de Medici, but then all these are mythological figures. Okay, all these are mythological figures. Here she's coming down into Marseille, France, and there's a red carpet welcome of her by all these people. They're welcoming her. But then the artist Rubens painted all these Roman and Greek mythological characters in these. Neptune, Fame, Nereids, and Fortune are all depicted in this painting. I think here there is another, I don't know if that is a character, but there's a trumpet, like so, of course you can't find flying people, this is realistic, but this is not, these are not, okay, in this painting. Let me see if I miss anything here. No. Let's move on to this one. This is the consequences of war. So remember, war has really awful, awful consequences, right? It doesn't matter which period the war is in. War is, so in this painting, he has painted the consequences of war where he has showcased, how people are fleeing from all this atrocity and people are being terrible by killing people, and people are in despair by people throwing up their hands. Children are holding on to dear life of their mothers, and the soldiers are being ruthless. So this is a very dynamic painting, right? It is showcasing a lot of the grief that happens during the war. Okay. So this was painted because of the 30 years of war from 1618 to 1648, which wreaked havoc upon Europe. Okay, and so he just paints this in remembrance of the war. Do you have any questions so far? Any questions? No? Okay. So here is another painting of Rubens, and this is called the Lion Hunt. So the Lion Hunt was painted in 1621. And it is a very dynamic painting, right? So there's showing a lot of motion here, a lot of motion. Remember that during that time, um, people were not allowed to kill exotic animals, like lions were considered exotic animals, but only the aristocracy, like people who are from the aristocracy, were allowed to hunt these animals for pleasure. So here they are showcasing where the lion is actually biting into this man, and he's just being, he's being killed. But at the same time, people on riding on horses are striking the lion with a spear. Here there's a man trying to put a sword into another lion's face. Here's a man totally killed, right? So again, let me ask you a question here. So what is this figure? Like what do you call this figure, the way he's painted here? There's a term for it. There's an artistic term for it that I just told you in this image, right? It's called what?
Foreshortening.
Yes, it's foreshortening. So that's one term you learned, okay? So foreshortening is where they're showcasing a person from a different angle. And so this area, like this particular area, looks larger than what's in the back. Okay, that's foreshortening. So this is, again, a very animated picture, which was very characteristic of the Baroque period, very dynamic painting. Imagine hunting was illegal in the 17th century. All right, here there is very David slaying Goliath. The one thing that he has shown over here is that David is almost, Goliath is like a giant and David is a smaller man. But remember, Michelangelo had actually sculpted David. His David was different from another David and so forth. So David and Goliath, this theme or this particular story has been painted over the centuries and sculpted over the centuries in numerous ways, right? Here's a different depiction of it. Here, David is actually going to cut off the head of Goliath, you know, and he is, but remember, like David's actually, what do you call it, uses a slingshot and injures Goliath by the slingshot, which hit him on his forehead. So you can see the blood that's coming out from there. And then he takes that sword and beheads him. And then David becomes the king of Israel, whereas Saul, who couldn't defeat um, Goliath, was not fit to be king of Israel. So that's the story that's being depicted here. It is a 48 by 4 inches by 38.9 inches oil on canvas. Okay. Here's another picture of, it's called the entombment. Again, very spiritual from the Bible, you'll find. And it is in the Getty Center in Los Angeles. Again, you can see here that they are showing Jesus's body all blue, lifeless body in Mary's hand, and just like just showcasing how sad people are in this picture, right? So that's one. It's a 51.6 by 51.2 inches, almost a square painting. Here is the last painting I'd like to show you from Rubens. It's The Fall of Dayton. It's present in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. I just wanted to show you one of the paintings that's in the National Gallery of Art. Someday, if you go to Washington, D.C., I would like to, from here in this, what do you call it, period, in the next 12 months, if I can find paintings that are in the National Gallery of Art from the artists that we are discussing, I'd like to put that in. So you'll be aware that if you ever take a trip down to Washington, D.C., you can just go and look for these paintings. You can see the real painting, okay? And the museum is free. You can walk in and see it. So another thing I wanted to discuss are the quotes of Rubens. You would think that, in those days, um, you know, that people wouldn't really leave back as many things. So remember in the Renaissance period, one of the Renaissance artists who was completely like, he put his biography out there when he was still alive was who? You remember that? It was Michelangelo. Remember? Michelangelo had like literally while he was alive told people to write his biography, and he has left so many what do you call it, copies of his artwork and sketches and so on and so forth. So what I would like for you guys to do is, when you never know what you're going to be when you grow up, like but when you're painting, when you're sketching, keep them filed away in a good place. You never know, one day you may be a famous artist or a famous somebody, and then people may be interested in what you did as a child. So don't throw away things, just keep it in a proper journal it and keep it separately. I never used to do that. In fact, I've thrown away a lot of my work from before. I remember there was this one time I'd written a story when I was a kid, and in those days we never had computers and things like that. So I told my father to go and get it typed by his typist, and his typist apparently typed it for me. And my father told me that, oh, she was crying when she typed your story, and it was a short story that I wanted to send out for publication. And I was so upset that this lady cried. It was a sad story, but a true story. I was so sad that she cried that I tore up the printed paper. And once you write something, you will never get back the same writing. So keep your, things that you're proud of, your sketches that you're proud of, or like your writings that you're proud of. That's how songs get made. You write down some thoughts and you put it away, then you retrieve it, and then those words come right back. So try to try to journal, try to keep those things. So one of the quotes of Rubens is, "I'm just a simple man standing alone with my old brushes, asking God for inspiration." He was a very pious man, Rubens. And a lot of his paintings were based on Christianity, Christian faith and mythology. So he would just like sort of think about it and then just ask God for inspiration. And then another quote of his is, "White is poison to a picture. Use it only in highlights." Oh, so this is a very interesting thing to think about. Like, he's an artist. Say, for instance, you take white, just the color white, okay, and you put it on a picture. He never did that. What he did, how did he use his whites? He used it to lower the, like, so supposing he took a yellow, he would add white to it and use that as a highlight. So for a painter, this is a good lesson, right? So that you should think about. Then another quote of his is, "I am by nature and inclination a peaceful man. The sworn enemy disputes lawsuits and quarrels, both public and private." He doesn't like to be a person who likes to engage in disputes and stuff. And then another quote of his is, "Every child has the spirit of creation. The rubbish of life often exterminates the spirit through plague and a soul's own wretchedness." So every child, like all of you kids, have a spirit to create, and you just, make sure that you utilize it and be happy with it and celebrate your creation, regardless of in what area it is. And then he also said, "My passion comes from the heavens, not from earthly musings." Another way where he's showcasing that he's a very pious man. Okay. And then another quote of his that I liked was, "My talent is such that no undertaking, however vast in size, has ever surpassed my courage." So here again, he's saying that, his talent, of how he utilizes his talent, and when he is painting, he's using his courage to paint. You see what I'm saying? So you have to just think about what he's trying to say with these quotes. It's really interesting to think about how people thought. I would paint like Rubens. I mean, I have this one slide that I want to showcase where you're painting like that artist. It is difficult to paint like him. I wouldn't know if I wanted to paint like him. One of the things that I would use. Tell me, what is one of the things that you would use if you were to paint like Rubens? What is the one thing you would like to do? Use one source of light, right? So you see over here, the light is coming from this side and it's highlighting the faces, right? And then there is one dark area right here. And so the darkness of one area is highlighting the lightness of this. So over here, see, he said white is poison, right? So this white loincloth is really not white. He has made it a little grayish. And he has given a lot of highlights by using various tonalities of gray, right? Here it's a little darker gray in the shadows right here. And it's lighter where the light falls. You see? So he was very different from his predecessors, Michelangelo and Vinci. And the way he's different from them is that Michelangelo and Vinci studied and drew, they studied the anatomy of a human being, and they idealized those forms, and their paintings were very idealistic forms. Whereas people like Rubens, they made their subjects in the painting very much like regular humans. Okay, and this man Rubens created his paintings in multiple layers, right? As an artist, he started work at the age of 14. He was a very prolific artist. He ran a large studio in Antwerp. And he never recorded who all were his students. So nowadays, we don't know who all were his students. Maybe a few, they know of a few, maybe like 18 or 20 of them. But he never had to record all of them because he was he was in a king's palace. So he just did it, and people came and apprenticed with him. And he did not have to make like a record of all these people. Okay. So he was knighted by the King of Spain, Philip IV, and Charles I, the King of England. Okay, and his work can be showcased into these different areas: 1600 to 1608, 1609 to 1621, during the Medici and the diplomatic cycle, which lasted from 1621 to 1630, and the last decade of his life, when he was alive, the last decade, like 50 to 60, he died at the age of 62. So over here, he had lost his wife, and then he got married to a young 16-year-old woman who was the niece of his first wife. And he actually used his wife as well as his niece as models in several of his paintings, especially the nude paintings and such. Um, yeah, so these are some of his different areas that he worked as. And the painting in the background, I didn't change it. There is a valley, it's by me. But I wanted to show you, like today we're not going to do a painting, but I wanted to show you something that will inspire you. Inspire you to do better. I am taking classes as we speak, even though I try to give you guys classes. I'm trying to teach myself by enrolling myself at Wright State and the Ohio State University. So I'm learning that, how to do a sketch and so forth. So I wanted to show you. This is, can you see this? Can you see the sketch? Yeah. So I'm trying to use charcoal pencils. Oh, it's not there. Yeah. I'm trying to use charcoal pencils to learn how to sketch and from live sources. So this is like a very simple, uh, okay, let me stop the screen share. Hold on. Okay, can you see this now? So what I'm saying is that this is a very simple object, right? A triangle, a cone, a circle, a square, a cylinder. So I made a still life, and I'm just, painting and sketching to show you. So I want you to do like some simple still lives, like take an apple or an orange and showcase a light from one angle and paint it. So those are different things that I would like for you to. So during the last couple of weeks, like this is a drawing where I'm doing without. So I'm going to draw a person, but without showcasing, without even like looking at, yeah, without looking at the person. So this is a blind drawing of a person. Okay, so try that, like blind drawing. Pretty interesting, right? This is not how. So you see, so draw as many as you can. Like this one was a still life that I created, okay, of a flower vase. So do as many as you can of these types of drawings. Here's another one. Here we are trying to do, like, I'm trying to take a printing class, and I'm trying to draw so that I'll have to transfer this now onto a copper plate. But then I have to draw this. So see, here I've put my name as Hyacinth. But now I'm going to switch it because you have to put a mirror image. And then when that printing plate comes out, if you sign it like Hyacinth, it will not be right, right? So it has to be the mirror image. So we are trying to do as many different types of sketches as possible. Here's one sketch of which I looked at the person, and you see this is not a blind sketch, you know. So we're trying to draw this. So what I'm saying, what I'm telling you to do is, when you have the time, do sketch as much as you can. Here's another. Okay, here's another painting. So one of the things that I do is I do a lot of abstract art, right? Um, but in my abstract art, I just take the paint and I go to my canvas and I start working on the canvas and let the inspiration come to me. But then, as I'm studying all these artists and I'm discussing these artists, I'm learning more and more that even if it is abstract art, put your idea down on paper and then put that idea from one sketch to another, keep improving that sketch. And then once you're convinced of that sketch, then go ahead and put it down on your canvas. So the takeaway from this particular class and for this particular year, what I want you to do is literally sketch, use a lot of sketches and save those sketches, okay? Here's one. I did this because it's sort of like it will be abstract, but not so abstract. There'll be some amount of realism in it. For instance, there's a scroll. You know that nowadays we don't have a scroll, but I'm going to put a scroll in there. It's a real part. This is going to be an abstract piece because, the Trump administration, this is my way of, thinking and talking about politics. The Trump administration came and literally cut off all the works that were done beforehand, right? So I'm going to utilize this particular picture and say that everything was taken away because Trump, you know, did not. He came away from the Paris Accord and so forth. And environmental disasters is a real thing. We know that. And so, what I'm trying to showcase in this is that after Biden's election, there's a ray of light. See that ray of light? And the ray of light, in terms of helping with the environment, is the Paris Accord, right? He signed the Paris Accord. Okay, so here's my. Can you see this? This is a painting I'm trying to do, but it's rather large. See? It's rather large. You like it? It's only the first layer. First layer. But then when I was doing, I just did it 2 days ago. I'm waiting for it to dry. So one of the things that I want to change in this, okay, you can see this. One of the things after I did this lecture with you guys on Rubens, what is one thing that you would like for me to change in this painting? What is one thing that you'd like for me to change that I know after I studied Rubens, I want to change in this?
A
Go ahead.
light, like
Huh?
a light source, like a
Light
light.
source. Exactly. Exactly. I'm so proud of you, Abigail. You just got it. So I'm going to make this portion a little bit darker gray. So this is like I'm showing the California fires in the redwood forest and everything that Trump did by, you know, by negating the Paris Accord. I'm going to obliterate it, like literally like obliterate it. But I'm going to obliterate it with like this would be a little bit darker. But then the ray of light comes in. So I'm going to put in like gold and silver leaf. I'll put silver painting. I don't have silver leaf. And the scroll is going to be gold leaf with the Paris Accord written on it. And this would be the lightest portion, but then this would be all dark. So I think that would be nice. At first I thought, I didn't want to do that. I thought, because you can make this all like, these are all shadows of the redwood forest in the back. And I'm going to add more colors in it. But I think now I'm going to make this area darker and that area much lighter. I think that would be really good. And I'm going to make this area darker too, and that area lighter. This is very textural. I used basically a lot of paint, and then I used what do you call it? I used a palette knife to do this. Okay. So this particular painting is something different from what I'm doing before. So even if I have abstract ideas, I know I did this one painting called Purple Rain. I should put that in, and even this one right here. This is There Is a Valley. This was also an abstract painting, but you know, I just did it. I just let my imagination take over the canvas and just do it. But I feel that if you put even your abstract thoughts on paper and keep developing it, it will turn into a better painting. So from this year on, since you have stuck with me since last July, I would like for you to, you know, get into the habit of, like, when you have free time, it doesn't need to be like you have to sit and work on a painting for hours on it. But when you get an idea, just put it down on a sketch pad, you know, and think about it and just, you know, and then develop it. So, okay, that would be one of them. All right. Any questions? No? All right. Okay, then. Let's see what we do next week. This week, I just wanted to tell you about, and next week, hopefully, we'll do a painting or a sketch or something together. Okay. And Abigail, the question I wanted to ask you is, um, do you put your videos on YouTube?
No, that was my first one.
That was your first one. It was a good one, Abigail. So, you know, I would like for you, because, you know, YouTube is a very good and important medium. I don't use it as much as I should, but you're a young person and you're a person of this day. So utilize all that you have, you know, at your fingertips. And YouTube is free to join, and it's free for you to upload it. One other thing that I like the way you did your video. I would like for you to talk as you are doing your painting. So then slowly you will get better and better and better, and people will start following you. You have a lot of promise in what you do. So, so you know, even when you go off to college, they're going to look at what have you done. Like, you know, what did you do? They are going to look at, you know, your social media presence and so forth. So go ahead and put it up on YouTube. That will be really, really good. Okay. All right. We'll see you again next month. All right. Take care. Bye.